The crackling sound of the taser and my pregnant wife's scream will haunt me forever. One moment, my 8 months pregnant Jessica was standing on our lawn, asking Karen Mitchell, our power-hungry HOA president, to leave our property. The next, she was on the ground, clutching her belly, eyes wide with pain and fear. "The baby," she gasped. "James, the baby." Karen, our power-hungry HOA president, stood over her, taser in hand, already spinning her story. She attacked me. I had to defend myself. I knelt beside Jessica, police commander's badge gleaming on my belt, the lights from my unmarked cruiser flashing across our perfectly manicured lawn. The look on Karen's face when she realized who I was, who she'd just attacked, almost made the nightmare worth it. Almost. "Karen Mitchell," I said calmly, looking up at the security camera mounted under our eaves, "you just assaulted a pregnant woman with an illegal taser, and it's all on video." Fear flashed across her face as I continued. "You just tossed the wife of the police commander who controls every officer in this city. You messed with the wrong family." 3 weeks earlier, Jessica and I had moved into Maple Creek Estates, attracted by its pristine appearance and the perfect nursery with bay windows in the charming colonial on Willow Lane. As the newly appointed commander of Metro Police, I'd been working 16-hour days cleaning up corruption, barely home to help with the move. "They seem pretty strict with their rules," Jessica mentioned, showing me an HOA regulation binder thicker than my police academy textbooks. We didn't even have time to finish unpacking before the first violation appeared, a bright yellow notice taped to our door about our garbage cans being visible from the street. Jessica had hidden them behind bushes as instructed, but apparently they needed to be completely invisible. "It's fine," I assured her. "We're still learning." The second notice came 3 days later. Our welcome mat was an unapproved decoration. The third citation appeared the following morning. The American flag on our porch was 2 inches larger than regulation size. Jessica called me at work, her voice tight with frustration. "James, this is getting ridiculous. I just watched a woman measuring our grass with a ruler." A ruler. That weekend, Jessica was planting flowers when a shadow fell across her. "Those aren't approved plants," said a sharp voice. My wife looked up to see a woman in her 50s, wearing designer yoga pants and a neighborhood watch captain badge. "I'm Karen Mitchell, HOA president," she announced, not bothering to help my very pregnant wife up from her knees. "Those hydrangeas aren't on our approved vegetation list. That'll be a $150 fine." When I got home that evening, Jessica was in tears. She treated me like I was nothing. The next morning, we found our newly planted hydrangeas pulled up and tossed on our porch with another citation. That was enough. I called the HOA management company, only to discover that Karen Mitchell didn't just run the board. She owned the management company that enforced the rules and collected the fines. At the station, I asked Officer Rodriguez to run a background check on Karen. What came back raised eyebrows. 3 previous lawsuits from homeowners in different neighborhoods, all settled quietly. Complaints about selective enforcement, excessive fines, and harassment. "She's a professional bully," Rodriguez said, showing me Karen's social media, where she bragged about maintaining standards. The next Friday, Jessica insisted on attending the HOA meeting despite my concerns about her stress levels. Karen controlled the room masterfully, dismissing complaints and cutting off speakers. When Jessica raised her hand to ask about the high fees, Karen looked right through her. After the third attempt, my wife stood up, her pregnant belly prominently displayed. "Excuse me, but we've tried to follow all the guidelines," Jessica said. Karen's voice cut like ice. "Sit down. We don't recognize speakers who aren't recognized by the chair." The room fell uncomfortably silent. Jessica took a deep breath. "The bylaws, Section 3, actually state that all residents have the right to speak for 2 minutes during open forum." Karen's neck flushed red. "You're out of order. Security, please escort this disruptive resident out." 2 men in ill-fitting HOA security uniforms moved toward Jessica. That's when I stood up, badge clearly visible. "That won't be necessary." The guards hesitated, looking from Karen to me and back. Karen's eyes narrowed at my badge. Your profession doesn't exempt you from our rules, Commander Reynolds. The way she emphasized my title made it clear she'd researched me. On our way out, an elderly neighbor warned us in the parking lot, "Be careful. She doesn't like being challenged." The last family who stood up to her found their car windows smashed. Police never found who did it. The next week brought escalating hostilities. Trash cans mysteriously appeared in our driveway rather than where we'd left them. Anonymous noise complaints were filed when neither of us was home. HOA security vehicles drove slowly past at all hours. Jessica installed security cameras, sending me footage of Karen personally placing violation notices on our door multiple times daily. I decided to fight back through proper channels, documenting every harassment incident and filing complaints with the county housing authority. Karen must have realized what I was doing because the next day, our cameras caught her pointing at our house while talking to her security team. That evening, they parked directly in front of our driveway, blocking Jessica's car. When she asked them to move, they claimed they were investigating a complaint. I called my officers, but by the time they arrived, the security team had conveniently moved. Things came to a head 3 days later. I was at work, leading a major operation to clean up corruption in a specialized unit. My team had just uncovered evidence implicating several high-ranking officers in a kickback scheme when my phone buzzed. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. "Karen and her security team are measuring our grass again," she said, her voice trembling with anger rather than fear. "They're taking pictures of everything. I'm going to ask them to leave." "Stay inside," I urged. "I'll be home in 20 minutes.
No, James.
I'm tired of hiding in our own house. I know my rights." Before I could respond, I heard the door open and Jessica's voice grow distant as she stepped outside. I kept the line open as I rushed to my car, listening as Jessica calmly asked Karen to leave our property. Karen's voice came through clearly, "Your grass is 4.2 inches. That's 1.2 inches over regulation. That's a $300 fine due immediately." Jessica responded that we'd mowed just 2 days ago according to their standards. Karen's laugh was cold. "Perhaps if you spent less time making complaints against the HOA and more time maintaining your property, you wouldn't be in violation." I heard Jessica take a deep breath, the way she always did when managing her emotions. "Please leave our property now. You're trespassing." "Don't you dare tell me what to do in my neighborhood," Karen hissed. I could hear the threat in her voice. "This is private property," Jessica insisted, "and I'm asking you to leave now." I was halfway home, lights flashing on my unmarked police vehicle, when I heard Karen shout, "Don't you dare touch me." Though my security footage later confirmed Jessica had done no such thing. There was a crackling sound, then my wife's scream. A sound I'd never heard before and never want to hear again. I heard Karen yell, "She attacked me," followed by the thud of Jessica falling. I pressed the accelerator to the floor, heart pounding. 3 minutes. I was just 3 minutes away. My tires screeched as I turned onto our street, siren blaring. By the time I pulled into our driveway, a small crowd of neighbors had gathered. The scene before me stopped my heart. Jessica on the ground, clutching her stomach, face contorted in pain, while Karen stood over her, holding what was clearly a police-grade taser. 2 security guards flanked her, looking increasingly uncertain as my unmarked police vehicle with flashing lights came to a halt. Time slowed to a crawl. Years of training took over as I rushed to Jessica, my commander's badge prominently displayed on my belt. I knelt beside her, checking her pulse while calling for an ambulance. "Stay with me, Jess," I whispered, cataloging her symptoms with the detached precision that panic forces on you. Her eyes locked with mine, filled with fear, not for herself, but for our unborn child. "The baby," she gasped again. "James, check the baby." Behind me, Karen was already constructing her defense. She became aggressive and threatening. She announced to the gathering crowd, "As HOA president, I have a duty to maintain order. Your wife clearly has emotional problems, Commander." I turned slowly, fixing her with the same look I've used on hardened criminals. Karen's words died in her throat. "Karen Mitchell," I said, my voice perfectly controlled despite the rage boiling inside me. "You just assaulted a pregnant woman with an illegal taser, one that's not authorized for civilian use in this state." I gestured toward our security camera. "And your assault, trespassing, and false accusations are all recorded in 4K resolution." The color drained from Karen's face as the implications hit her. One of her security guards took a step back, distancing himself from what was clearly becoming a crime scene. I was defending myself," Karen stammered, but the confidence was leaking from her voice. "Lying to a police officer is also a crime," I replied as the wail of approaching sirens filled the air. "One of many you've committed today." 3 police cruisers and an ambulance arrived within minutes. Officers Rodriguez and Chin secured the scene with practiced efficiency, collecting the taser and sealing it in an evidence bag. Chin, one of my most trusted detectives, began taking statements from witnesses while Rodriguez gently moved the growing crowd back. "Jefferson Alvarez, I called to 2 officers I'd personally trained. Please secure all video evidence from our home security system and the neighbors." I turned to Karen, whose face now showed the first real traces of fear. "And please retrieve Miss Mitchell's phone as evidence. I believe she was recording this encounter herself." "You can't do that," Karen protested, clutching her phone to her chest. Detective Chun stepped forward. "Ms. Mitchell, that device now contains evidence of a felony assault. We can seize it under exigent circumstances, or you can surrender it voluntarily. Either way, it's coming with us." Karen's security teams suddenly couldn't remember what had happened, their loyalty evaporating under the threat of accessory charges. One of them, a younger man who looked barely out of high school, approached Officer Rodriguez. "I want to cooperate fully," he said, glancing nervously at Karen. "Miss Mitchell told us specifically to target the Reynolds house. She said we needed to make an example of them." As the paramedics loaded Jessica into the ambulance, I leaned close to Karen, my voice calm but cutting. "You just tossed the wife of the man who commands every police officer in the city. The man who's been leading a major operation against corruption and abuse of power. The man who has spent the last 3 weeks documenting your harassment, intimidation, and selective enforcement." Karen tried to interrupt, but I continued. "Every patrol car, every detective, every evidence technician in this city reports to me. And they're all going to make sure this case is handled by the book. Absolutely by the book." Karen's attempt at indignation crumbled. "You can't. I'm an important person in this community." "So is my wife," I replied. "And unlike you, she actually helps people." I turned to Officer Chin. "Please read Miss Mitchell her rights and place her under arrest for assault with a dangerous weapon, trespassing, filing false reports, and operating an unlicensed security company." Chin nodded, producing handcuffs as I climbed into the ambulance beside Jessica. As the ambulance doors closed, I caught a final glimpse of Karen Mitchell, HOA president, neighborhood tyrant, self-proclaimed protector of property values, being led away in handcuffs, her carefully maintained image crumbling before the stunned eyes of the community she'd terrorized. In the ambulance, I held Jessica's hand as the paramedics monitored her and our baby's vital signs. "The baby's heartbeat is strong," the paramedic assured us, and I felt Jessica's body relax slightly beneath my touch. "But we need to get you both to the hospital for full evaluation." Jessica squeezed my hand. "Did you see her face?" she whispered through the pain, "when she realized who you were?" I nodded, stroking her hair. "I did." "Worth it?" Jessica asked with the ghost of a smile. "Nothing is worth seeing you hurt," I said truthfully. "But watching justice catch up to Karen Mitchell? That comes pretty close." At the hospital, our fears dissolved when the doctor confirmed our son was unharmed. Jessica had minor injuries, but would recover completely. I stayed by her side, making calls, not to pull strings, but to ensure everything was handled properly. Karen spent the night in jail. The investigation quickly expanded as neighbors came forward with similar stories of harassment and intimidation. County officials discovered she'd been skimming HOA fees for years, using the funds to finance her lifestyle while targeting residents who challenged her authority. 3 weeks later, Jessica and I attended a community meeting called by the County Housing Authority. The atmosphere was transformed. People spoke freely without fear. Karen's entire HOA board had resigned, and her management company was under investigation for financial fraud. Today, 6 months later, our son Matthew plays in the backyard of our home in Maple Creek Estates. The new HOA board, elected by actual community vote, meets quarterly to discuss real concerns rather than enforcing arbitrary rules. The regulations have been reduced from 300 pages to 30, focused on safety and community well-being. Karen Mitchell is serving 18 months for assault, with additional charges pending. Jessica leads the Neighborhood Welcome Committee, personally delivering baskets to new residents that include a cheerful note explaining that garden hydrangeas are perfectly welcome. Sometimes, the biggest changes start in the smallest places, like a front yard in a quiet suburban neighborhood where someone finally said, "Enough."